candidate forum tonight this is our local candidates running for House and Senate. I'd like to welcome everyone. I want to thank the candidates in advance for their participation and taking time out of their busy schedule. We'd also like to thank Tom Keyes, our president of our Chamber of Commerce, for co-hosting this event with us. Thank you, Tom. And before I introduce Tom as our moderator, I'd like to just begin by going over a few of how we're using our Zoom tonight. Except for the moderator and our timer, everyone will be on mute and the video will be off. Our timer is Ralph Hall, and he will be timing our candidates. For individuals with questions, we will just have questions submitted to lwv.nc.cc@gmail.com in advance. And also everyone, again, we will stay on mute and no video. Participants can go in the top right-hand corner and set to speaker view if they like, so they can see the candidates. The forum will also be recorded on Zoom, and we will then convert it to YouTube, and that will be available in the next few days on our Facebook page. So just wanted to let everyone know about that. Just a reminder for early voting. Early voting begins Thursday, October 15th, and it goes through Saturday, October 31st. Polls are open from 8 a.m. till 7:30 p.m. And then Tuesday, November 3rd is general election day. Polls open at 6:30 a.m. and are open until 7:30 p.m. So now I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Tom. Tom has been president of the Chamber of Commerce for the past 4 years. Prior to that, he was executive director for the Morehead City Revitalization Association. Let's give a warm welcome to Tom.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me be here, and thank you to the candidates for also joining us tonight. I'm going to introduce the candidates alphabetically, and then after I've introduced you, we are going to give the candidates a chance to have 2 minutes for opening remarks. After that, they'll respond to written questions from the audience, and we have actually quite a few questions that we've gotten in advance. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to respond to each question. I will ask them in a random pattern, not always alphabetically. All candidate remarks will be timed to ensure equal opportunity for everyone. Our timekeeper is Ralph Hall, a member of the league. Candidates, he will have a timer up on his screen that will let you know when your time is over. Please stop promptly when your time is up. We do understand you may continue your thought for a few more seconds. We don't want to cut anybody off. So without hesitation, let's begin our 2-minute introductions from each candidate. And once again, it's alphabetical. So we will start with Buck Bailiff.
Okay, good evening, everyone. And thank you to the league for putting this together and giving us the opportunity to meet with people. When I decided to run, it was to give the community the choice in the election year that I believe is going to be one of the most important elections in our lifetime. Now with COVID, we have the opportunity to decide whether we want to rebuild our communities and our economies, or do we want to continue business as usual, or come back stronger with good, local, equitable communities. We need better opportunities for healthcare and expand Medicaid, the right to a living wage, especially for our teachers, access to high-speed internet in our rural areas, and the protection of our natural resources by embracing scientific data to protect our waterways and land. I believe a community cannot be successful unless everyone has an opportunity to participate. I also believe that not one person nor one party has all the answers. We must get back to the days when reaching across the aisle and working together. I will listen to you, and most importantly, I will respond to you. I feel that my years in handling multi-million-dollar budgets and project management at 2 universities, along with management of personnel, has given me a good base to learn, understand, and work with government issues, making sure that these issues work for you and all our citizens here, and not just those of special interest. Another thing that I want to do in Carteret and Jones County is to create opportunities for our young people, the ones that graduate and want to stay here. We have tremendous assets around us, and it's frustrating when those students go away to college and then they say they have nothing to bring them back here. For us to create sustainability for our future generations, we must ensure that all the pieces work in consort, beginning with education, good jobs, good pay, medical care, and protection of our environment. Again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight and look forward to the rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I neglected to say that Mr. Bailiff is running for the House of Representatives. Our other candidate is Pat McElrath, and I would introduce her, but she's in the hospital tonight. She's had a procedure done. I understand it was a successful procedure, but I do know that we all want to wish her well. Running for Senate in alphabetical order is Libby Griffin. Libby, would you give us 2 minutes to hear your introduction?
I will. First, let me make sure that you can hear me. My mic working okay? Hi, I'm Libby Griffin. I'm a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother. I live in New Bern, so I'm not terribly familiar with Carteret County, though I've been there quite a lot this year. I'm running because I want to become an advocate for people who have not had as many advantages in life as I've had. At the top of my list of people to advocate for are North Carolina's children. People like us care about helping our neighbors and their children. The leadership of our General Assembly doesn't seem to care very much about poor kids. Consider these statistics. Those of you who are teachers know that nearly 60% of all North Carolina kids depend on the school lunch and breakfast programs for most of their meals. That's more than 500,000 kids every day. 65,000 children in our state live in extreme poverty, which is defined by the federal government as half of the federal poverty threshold. Many of them are children of the working poor, those earning as little as $7.25 an hour, the state minimum wage. Between 2010 and 2014, 20% of the children of working mothers in this state were dropped from state-supported child care. In 2015, the General Assembly cut off food stamps, known now as the SNAP program, to 105,000 impoverished people in North Carolina, despite the fact that this program is entirely federally funded. These numbers are frightening to those of us who care about children and their parents. As a society, I believe we're better than this. We need a legislature that cares about all our citizens, not just the rich. I'm ready to help those kids and their family have a better life and a brighter future. But I am also
Thank you, Ms. Griffin.
with other issues.
Your time is up.
Also running for the state Senate is Tim Harris. Tim, would you give us 2 minutes? You're on mute, Tim.
There we go. Sorry about that. I muted myself earlier. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on. The work that you do is one of the few opportunities we as candidates here in Eastern North Carolina have to interact with our voters, to have our voters see us. And I would like to introduce myself. I am Tim Harris. I am the Libertarian candidate for North Carolina State Senate. If you live in Craven, Carteret, or Pamela County, you will see, bless you by the way, you will see me on your ballot. You might be wondering why it is that we need 3 people on the ballot. If you've been voting for the past 100 years or so in North Carolina, you've only ever seen 2. Occasionally there might be an independent. But the reason why I am a libertarian and the reason why I am on this ballot is because we have an opportunity here now in this time, in this era, when the 20th century politics that got us where we are, that got us this far, are frankly failing us. And it's time that we have a legislature. It's time that we have a legislature filled with legislators who are capable of leading us into the 21st century, of providing the laser focus that we need to have on the things that, as a state, we do. Because let's be honest, the function of the state government or any government below federal is relatively limited. It's primarily maintenance and administration of a justice system and an educational system, at least in the last half of the 20th century. It's not a whole lot that the legislature has to do, but we haven't been getting it right, and it's been slowly failing and slowly falling apart. And it's time that we now take the opportunity that we have when we've got people, a younger voice, an outside voice, a third, a fourth, a fifth party voice, when we've got people who we can elect to the legislature, take that opportunity to put those new ideas in that body so that we can go forward into the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you. Also running for state senate is Senator Norman Sanderson. Senator Sanderson, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I certainly would, and thank you for this opportunity. I want to thank the Chamber and the League of Women Voters, both very, very active in not only Carteret County, but across North Carolina. I've had a lot of times, places to be able to talk with people with the League. And in my office in Raleigh and here locally, I know that they have some things that are on their agenda that are very important things, just as the Chamber does. The Chamber is the premier business organization in the state of North Carolina that actively looks after business, whether it's taking good business and trying to get it passed through the legislature, or blocking business that is not very friendly to business. And so I appreciate all the work that they've done. My name is Norman Sanderson. I live in Pamlico County. I have lived here for about 46 years, I think. A few years in Craven, but most of my time right here in Pamlico County. I am completing my 10th year in the General Assembly. The first two were in the North Carolina House, and the last 8 in the Senate. It's an honor to represent the people of Carteret County and my other 2 counties, Craven and Pamlico. There's a lot of folks in Raleigh that follow me home every weekend when we come back, so they can come to the coast. And we'd be surprised how many folks in Raleigh have Carteret County as their second home. I have enjoyed my time in the General Assembly. I know a little later we'll get into some of the things that have happened and done, but you know, I just to some of the things that have already been spoken, I too am most concerned about education, especially in this environment that we find ourselves in. But I know that a lot of these problems that have been discussed have been around for a long time, and we keep chipping away at them, and we're going to continue until we get those problems once and for all settled.
Thank you. I'll now ask questions, and each of you will have 2 minutes to respond. I'm going to ask them in a random pattern, not always alphabetically. So if I get out of order, it's nothing that we haven't done in the past. I'm going to start with Senator Norman Sanderson. If you're elected, what do you see as your most important priority after taking office?
Well, Tom, there are many things that are affecting Eastern North Carolina that's kind of holding us back. Healthcare is one of them. How do we get healthcare out into our rural areas? I think that we have a great opportunity in the fact of what we have seen happen during this pandemic to expand on that and to really make sure that those folks who have been unable to get to healthcare can now do it through different means. I know that we also have been working on broadband and have made great progress in broadband to some of our rural remote areas. We have funded some time or some programs with those companies that are already in those areas, electric co-ops and others, to help get that rural area to get internet, because the world runs on the internet. The world runs on broadband, and it's not going to go back in the other direction. It's just going to get more intense. And so, you know, as we press ahead, next year will be a very, very busy year. It will be our year for redistricting after the 2020 census, which is extremely important. I think it will be a year when hopefully we will be able to craft and put together a budget that will take the place finally of the one from 2018 that we're still operating on. There are many needs in North Carolina that were not met and I'm looking forward and excited about finally getting to those needs and make sure that the people in, especially down East North Carolina. I'm fortunate enough to sit on committees that have a lot to do with down East North Carolina, our farming, our fishing, and again, the broadband situation. And I'm excited about bringing those things back to the table again and to make sure that North Carolina, Eastern North Carolina, has a voice in the General Assembly.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, same question.
My number one priority if elected, as I mentioned earlier, the state doesn't have too many legitimate roles at the state level. A government doesn't have that many legitimate roles, and the primary one of them is maintaining a equal and safe playing field for everybody who lives in the state. And by this, I mean the justice system. And we have a lot of problems that need to be addressed, a lot of problems that are being addressed in a slow way by our legislature, sometimes as fast as they can. But there are some that become urgent to the point where we have to stop and we have to address these issues right here and right now before we continue to ruin lives. Criminal justice reform in this next legislative session is going to be the biggest issue that we need to address as a state, because as a state, we are failing in criminal justice reform. This starts with the fact that our legislature has muddled its way through and not really devoted any attention to things like cannabis reform and legalization. We cannot have criminal justice reform unless we're removing nonviolent offenders from our prisons. We are not going to have true criminal justice reform until we remove police officers' ability or police officers' responsibility to police for profit. It takes significant changes in our legislative code to remove the daily interactions between law enforcement and the citizenry that produce a lot of the violence that we're seeing. Until we end qualified immunity, we're never going to get true criminal justice reform. And I want to stop here and say that we're not going to get any of these things from either of the parties that we have currently running our state legislature, either in majority or minority. They simply have shown that they are not interested in these reforms. These are things that we have to have just to have a safe, just citizenry, just to have our people be able to live their lives, go to work, pay their bills. We've got to have these things, and it is my number one priority for this session.
Thank you. Ms. Griffin.
I think my biggest concern at this point in time is seeing us get through this COVID crisis in the best way possible for all the people of North Carolina. We're dealing with high unemployment, with people losing their homes, with people losing their cars, their life savings, everything. Great many people. And I think that the legislature really needs to act to help those people in this difficult time. That's probably my biggest concern, that and their kids. The children are top of my list, but my list includes other issues. I'm concerned about senior citizens, and I hope that we can maybe expand public transit into the rural areas, as well as Wi-Fi, and that we can work with teenagers and adults who are opioid addicts and come up with better plans and better programs to help them free themselves from addiction. I'm worried about coastal flooding. I live in New Bern. I had 4.5 feet of water of the Neuse River in my house in Hurricane Florence. I know that we need to do something to stop that from happening repeatedly. And of course, I'm local issues such as schools and hospitals, city streets. Those are the kinds of things that I would work for, things that improve life for all of us every day.
Thank you. Mr. Bailiff, same question. Mr. Bailiff, you're on mute.
Sorry, forgot. Actually, I look at it as a two-prong approach. We have an economic crisis as well as a health crisis. And when you look at how we dismantled our safety net back in 2013, when we took our unemployment insurance system to the point that we have now one of the worst systems in the country, with our people only getting 12 weeks of unemployment compared to 26, which is the national average. And then we have refused to expand Medicaid. And expansion of that Medicaid will help over 500,000 people, families here in North Carolina. Here in Carteret County, we're talking about potentially 4,000 families and the economic impact of $46 million that would bring in. And then we haven't done anything to the wage system to help working class people. So when we have these kind of gaps, it makes it hard on everyone. So those two areas would be the ones that I would look at the most, would be the health issues, the economics issues, and we'd need to really work together and make changes in those.
Thank you. The pandemic has been at the top of everybody's mind, I think, for about the last 7 months. What is your opinion on how the state of North Carolina has handled the pandemic? And that's kind of a broad question, I know, so just do the best you can. We're going to start with Ms. Griffin.
Well, I will say that I've been very impressed with Governor Cooper's work. He has been there for us every single day, kept us informed, kept us as safe as he possibly could. He's been reasonable with the restrictions that have protected the health of most of us. I'm very, very pleased with the way that he has conducted our government. I've been not so pleased with the legislature because I haven't seen anything come out of the legislature that really does anything to help anybody. They passed a small amount of money from the $3 billion they've gotten from the feds to provide Wi-Fi to children who don't have it in their homes. Other than that, I haven't read or heard of much of anything that they have done. So that's been disappointing. I'd like to change the subject just a bit to say that Buck and I really didn't compare notes, but we're going to sound very much the same, I'm afraid. We should have compared notes, probably. I'm going to copy him quite often, but I think it's important that we do expand Medicaid, that we do improve public schools, that we do help the families who are in such dire need at this time. And I would look for the new legislature to be more forthcoming with their assistance.
Thank you. Norman Sanderson, same question.
Could you repeat the question, Tom?
Not a problem. In your opinion, how has the state of North Carolina handled the pandemic?
Okay, thank you. Well, from the start, let me just say that I don't think it was the proper procedure to handle North Carolina as a one-size-fits-all, from the mountains to the coast. I think that there were many counties in our county state that could have been a lot less affected by some of the rules and the regulations that have come down from the governor's office. The governor has made about 99.9% of these decisions on his own with the help of, I guess, his advisors. We have had very little input from the governor as far as data and where the trouble spots are and how we can help. We have passed about 6 separate standalone bills in the General Assembly to help certain sections of our small businesses reopen quicker than they are. Some of them are still not open. All 6 of those were vetoed by the governor. About the only time we've gotten any data from the governor is when it's come under threat of a lawsuit. And usually right before a lawsuit is about to come up, we hear that oh, we're sorry, we made a mistake of 200,000 people that were supposed to, should not have been on a list and ended up on a list. And so it's just been very, very hit and miss as far as the General Assembly is concerned. The biggest problem that we had was that we were not in session. And if we can call ourselves back into session, but it's very, very difficult. I think you'll see legislation come forth next year that says that going forward, if there is a statewide emergency declared for more than 10 days at a time, that the General Assembly will automatically come back in session, because there needs to be voices from all across North Carolina answering and looking into a statewide emergency like this and giving our input and trying to advocate for our citizens. There's no reason that Hamilton and Carteret County should have been shut down the same manner that Wake or Mecklenburg County. We just didn't have that kind of problem.
Thank you. Mr. Bailiff, same question.
Well, I'm going to take the other side there. I feel like that Governor Cooper has done an outstanding job in handling the virus and the steps that he's taken. I'd much rather see us be proactive than reactive. Why wait until we have a problem to address it? Stop it in the beginning. For me personally, we have lost friends and people that we know. This virus is a nasty thing, and you have to pay attention to it, and you have to listen to what the scientists are telling us. I'd also like to just give a quick shout out to the people that we've called essential workers, because those are the ones that have gone to work every day and they've supplied us with our food and our daily resources. And a lot of times those people don't get paid very well either. And so we need to also think about that, and we need to take care of these people. But overall, I think the governor's done an outstanding job in approaching the virus.
Thank you. Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris, there you go.
There we go. I have a tendency to mute myself. I believe that the response here in North Carolina has been, for the most part, an abject failure. And this is a problem that comes not just from, it's easy to try to blame Governor Cooper, to try to blame the legislature. It's a problem that comes from the way that we have designed our government to function to begin with. Our government was built with, excuse me, I have dogs outside. Our government was built with the idea that we needed to have an executive who seized all power in the event of an emergency. This might have worked 200 years ago. This does not need to continue functioning the way it does. And what we have is we have executives, in this case, Governor Cooper, seizing executive power, I believe unconstitutionally, both federal and state constitutions, to go it on his own, to go it with his own advisors, his own party's way, without input to or from the state legislature. As Senator Sanderson commented, we've had bills that have gone to the governor and been vetoed. In the meantime, we've had 220-some thousand cases in North Carolina and about 3,700 deaths. And it's impossible, well, nearly impossible for us at this moment. We won't know this till we see data later on and we can look back in hindsight. It's almost impossible for us to determine whether or not we would have had the same amount of cases and the same amount of deaths had we not taken a sledgehammer to the economic productivity of this state, had we not shut down entire swaths of our service industry. It is going to take us years or decades to recover the lost economic vitality that we have. And this is one of the situations where we have had an executive who he wants to play the big man. Anybody in that position would, and it's one of the reasons why I believe that we need to fundamentally adjust the amount of power we give to the big man.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Next question. Everybody here tonight has talked about how important education